Welcome to Magic and the City, with me, author and podcaster Carrie Parker. This is the podcast where we talk about the magical every day, celebrating those moments when something truly magical has happened in our lives, and taking time to acknowledge that magic and magical things do exist, and that these wide-eyed moments of wonder are not something we left behind in our childhoods. They are present now in our adult lives, but maybe we don't see them for the magic they truly are. Every episode, I ask a very special guest to discuss 3 magic moments and how they shaped their lives to where they are now. So, please join us as I wave my magic wand and sprinkle some fairy dust on your day. Let's be magical together. Hello and welcome to Magic and the City. And this week, my very special guest is Anne Jirsch. Hi, Anne. Thank you for joining me.
You're welcome. It's lovely to be here.
So Anne is known as the Queen of FLP, FLP being future life progression, and which we'll talk about in a minute. Anne is a successful author of 5 books and counting, and runs workshops all around the world and trains people. And basically, I'm absolutely delighted that you are doing this podcast with me. I've really wanted to talk to you for a long time. I want to kick off by asking you about how you got into, this is, I know, one of your first magic moments, how you got into finding future life progression and the story behind that.
Oh, well, I'd worked with cards, I'd worked with intuition for a great many years, and I was always very fascinated by past life regression. So I worked with that. I went and there was nobody teaching back then. So I trained in hypnotherapy, started writing my own scripts. I worked with past life regression for many years. That is magical. I mean, past life is so magical. You have so many incredible experiences. One day I was working, I had some military guys come. They wanted to find out various things from the past. They did a number of past life regression. They were amazing to work with because they'd come in one at a time. They'd have no time to collaborate or find out what the other one said, but they kept seeing lifetime after lifetime around each other, as Vikings or Native Americans. So that was amazing. The synchronicity was phenomenal. Then one day, they had something that they specifically wanted to find out, to do a military thing, what had happened in the past where something was. So I got somebody to take all 3 of us back. And instead of going back, we jumped forward. We didn't know we jumped forward because it didn't make sense. We were trying to look at something specific from the past, and we jumped forward. And we actually saw the attack on the Twin Towers. And at the time, nothing had happened like it before. So we just thought we'd had a bad session. We just thought, we're not on form. This isn't going well. 3 weeks later, when the attack happened, that we were shell shocked. Well, because we suddenly realized we'd seen that, saw the attack, and all had different angles on it, but we saw the attack, but we'd also not known enough to stop it. And it's like Mark Twain said, what's the point of seeing a bird, every little bird that falls? What's the point? So, it really was very unsettling that we'd seen it, but not been able to change anything, or didn't have the awareness to realise, because it was unprecedented. We had nothing to measure it up against. But after a little while, we started to experiment, and we started to predict a lot of world events, and that went on for quite some time. In fact, we talked about doing some more work, looking at the next stages. But that was a big magical moment that we realised we glimpsed a world event, because once you start to see things, you have an awareness. We kind of have a tendency to see ourselves as victims. Oh, what's going to happen in the world next? Oh, isn't it terrible? But from that, you start to go, if I can see the future, then I can change it.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's quite remarkable that you started off the session trying to go backwards, and you had the intention of going backwards.
Yeah.
But you didn't go backwards.
No.
Why do you think that was?
Once in a blue moon, I'll have a client. This is very rare, but once in a blue moon, somebody will come to see the future. Will go back and go, well, that's where you're meant to be looking.
Ah,
Maybe we're not looking in the right place. Sometimes and sometimes I've got to go back with somebody before I can clear something from the past or have some awareness of the past before we go forward.
okay. It's very interesting because nothing is linear.
Hmm?
Nothing is straight lines in nature.
No,
So
absolutely.
like we can't go back or we can't go forward. It's like it's a loop.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in is the story of how you got into this kind of work in the first place.
Yeah, I was well as a kid, I stayed with my grandmother in the summer, and she was quite an unusual character, putting it mildly. Um, and she was way too much makeup and heavy jewelry, and she flirted with men like anything. She was outrageous flirt, and but she was magical, and she read the tea leaves. And I think that was my first kind of experience of seeing magic happen. She'd read the tea leaves, and I was a nosy kid. I got the best job in the world for somebody nosy,
Yeah,
reading cards. You just, it's a great job for a nosy person. But I was a nosy kid, and so I'd say I knew she got it right because from I could listen to what people were saying, and I could they'd come back and go, "Oh, when you said this and that happened," so I knew it worked. So I tried to be intuitive, and I'd sit there as a little kid trying to go, right, there's going to be such a, and it never ever happened, not once did I get, not even by fluke, not even by guesswork, but
yeah,
I knew it worked. So the benefit of that is if you do something naturally, you often don't know how you do it. So the benefit to me was I had to go and find out. And so I went in search of, and I still study intuition and how it works to this day, all these years later. I'm still studying intuition. So my first magical thing was watching my nan cure warts. Yeah, she cure warts, and she'd go out and collect herbs and plants and things. And she never really said too much about what she was doing with them, but we know a lot more now. We can guess. But yeah, she used to cure things and yeah, read the tea leaves. It was great fun.
yeah. And this was she in London?
She was an East Ender. And what happened was she moved out to Kent. A lot of East End, we were West London and we moved out Slough. They got the better deal because they went to Kent, which is wonderful. So
Yeah,
she met a lot of my aunts around, and I've still got cousins out in Kent. We come the other way, we went west. So the East Enders, she was a proper East Ender,
yeah,
proper. So and I found the East End seems to have very good psychics. I found some of the best psychics I've ever come across have been proper EastEnders, very straight speaking. They'll
yeah.
tell you it like it is, but very intuitive. So yeah, she moved out to Kent, so I used to go and stay with her.
Yeah, that's really interesting. This kind of East Ender of people that were very much into that side of life, but
Yeah, yeah.
it wasn't kind of woo woo in those days.
No, no.
People really believed it, didn't it?
They
Uh,
really did. I think they had it hard. I think when you've got it hard, you look for answers. And she was good at providing the answers.
yeah. And so as far as past life regression, I know that you know Paul McKenna.
Hmm.
And did you train with him or did you get to know him professionally?
I got to know him really well, but I did the NLP. He invited me on the NLP, so I did NLP. No, the past life regression massively preceded me meeting him. I did that a long time ago. You're going back lot of decades, really. Um, and I kept hearing about past life and reading, but we didn't have the internet. There weren't spiritual books in your local bookshop. And the strange thing is, the only place that sold spiritual books was Watkins in London, and they're now my publisher. So, kind of done one of your lovely full circles. So
Yeah.
I'm now with them, and they're tremendous. They're really lovely people. Back then there wasn't, and then I heard about Denise Ling coming over, and she ran this huge group in London. I think there's about 800 people in the room. and it just blew me away. I'd spent all these years building up, wanting to be regressed. And then she did this massive room, and I'm looking down, and I'm a black boy in North Africa, and I'm looking down at my arms and legs, and it was just and I knew I had to work with it, but there was I couldn't find anybody that even did regression in England, let alone train. So I went and trained in clinical hypnotherapy, wrote my own scripts. That's how I started out.
And how easy is it for somebody to actually experience? I mean, is it something that is guaranteed everybody will experience the regression, or?
I find most people who come for anything like past life regression, future life regression, that I usually find they're good subjects because that they're already open to this. You know, if you was just to go and take a bunch of business people, the average bunch of people, it would probably be a bit harder. Although I have done that, and it has gone well. But you kind of have to explain it and work with them a lot more. If somebody's resistant, they're going to be hard to work with. But usually, people who want regression have done meditation. They've got a good understanding. They know how it works, and they want to know that. So I think it attracts people that are easier to work with.
And when you're conducting a session, can you actually see what they're seeing ever, or can you see if it's working? I mean, what's your feedback when it's
Oh,
happening?
you're going to have to come and train with me, aren't you?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, yeah, you can, yeah, no. The thing is, you're communicating with the person. You monitor. You can see how relaxed they are. You can see rapid eye movement. There's loads of things that you can monitor when you're working with someone. But usually, it's the communication more than anything. They tell you that you're asking them things, and it's like a dialogue. You're guiding them. So, and I find that once they get something, like it might be I'm aware of trees or I feel warm, whatever it is, that starts to open it up and more comes.
Yeah, because it's interesting. I mean, growing up seeing Paul McKenna on the television,
Mm,
I kind of got the my sense of people going into hypnosis was that they had no idea what was happening to
yeah,
them.
yeah,
When I had a session, future life progression
mm,
with you, and I was surprised that I was conscious the whole time,
yeah,
and
yeah.
we were talking and you were asking questions and I was saying what I was seeing and that kind of thing.
Mm.
So it wasn't what I was expecting. I was expecting almost to not remember anything.
I know people think they're going to be in a coma or something, and to work with people, I don't want them that deep. I want them to have an awareness of what's going on. I want them to be able to communicate. You don't need to take people that deep in order to access the information. I think it's one of them myths of television and movies that you think people don't know what's going on or they have no control over what's happening. But that's not the average. I mean, I've been hypnotized by a number of the big names, not just Paul, a number of the big names. And I totally know what's going on the whole time. But the information that comes up isn't what my conscious mind would come up with.
That's interesting. So
Mm.
when Paul McKenna has hypnotized you, you don't go completely under. You
I'm
still.
not a relaxed person anyway.
Yeah.
So when I'm being hypnotized, I'm kind of peeping a bit, you know. I'm kind of in meditation groups. I'm the fidget that gets on everyone's nerves. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not one of these blissed out people. One of the soldiers I work with, to get into the zone to work, he drives really fast and plays heavy metal. That puts him into some sort of space. So it might be music, it might be going for a walk. But yeah, you don't need to be massively deep. No, you don't. But nicely relaxed. We see it as I take people through a relaxation process, then do a guided visualization. I mean, if I was just to calm my voice now, get you to imagine you're sitting, you'd naturally start to float. You know, I can put you on a boat on the river. You naturally start to calm and relax and focus on the imagery. It's quite easy to get people into a nice relaxed state.
Mm.
And once they're in that state, their subconscious mind kicks in.
Yeah. I keep wanting to talk about FLP. I've now got lots of other questions, but um,
We'll probably do more than one of these.
I'm interested in the kind of people that come to you for future life progression. Are they professionals? What are the kind of people, and what is it they want to know?
It's really interesting question because we do attract. It's up years ago when I trained in clinical hypnotherapy. It was me. There was another hypnotherapist there. Then my daughter, who's a hypnotherapist, would come in, and we all attracted a different profile type of client. Completely different. My daughter got a lot of people with anxiety and panic attacks, which she's brilliant with. The guy got people that hit a crisis in their 40s and 50s. And I got addictions. People, either they're very business-like or people with addictions. They seem to be my subjects. I mainly get people wanting to look at business. It's
Right.
mainly business, which is why I developed the future vision coaching, because people now, they years ago, you got a job, you do your job for life, you might get promoted, but it don't work like that anymore. Everything's changing so much. I developed the coaching side so I can steer people through and find their most successful future. So I mainly work with business people.
Yeah. And how receptive are people to future life progression? Because it's still something that people may be skeptical about.
Mm.
Does it really work? How is it going to, I'm investing this money. How is it going to help? Can it really um, shape my business? I mean, what proven results do you give people?
Well, the thing is, they read the books or they listen to an interview. I don't often get asked for proof because the people that come to me, for one, it draws the type of person. There's probably loads of people that just go, "Oh, I'm not doing that," or "It's nonsense."
Yeah.
I'm not going to come across them, I don't think. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting question because I think the people that come, and I have major business people, absolutely major, major. I mean, if you see my last book, just who wrote quotes for the book, the people that wrote quotes, they're big shot business people. They know my work. They've had a mate go, "You really want to go and see Anne?" Or I've had, or they've talked about the experience, or they're already warm. So skeptics don't really come.
Mm.
Maybe if I'm giving a talk, you could get a skeptic in the audience, which is fine. Or when I've done radio shows, they phone in and they're brilliant. I mean, usually the producer will say, "I've got this guy and he's really gunning for you," and I go, "Bring him on." Let him have his say. I don't mind, but I don't. Apart from radio shows and public speaking, but even so, public speaking, they're not going to come see you if they're not open to it.
Mm.
So I don't really come across. I should imagine there's plenty of skeptics out there, but they'll go off and play with something else, which is fine.
Yeah. So, what does magic mean to you? When I say the word magic, what do you think of?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because people have got different concepts of magic. I mean, I know people that actually do a little pouch. I've got a pouch behind my screen hanging up there where somebody made me little pouches, and people do the magic as in sorcery. I don't do that. Now and again, I put protection around people. But to me, magic is, it's almost a bit like miracles. I see magic as a bit like miracles. It's like when you create something or make something happen that's so incredible. And we all have them magic moments in our lives when you go, "Wow, how could that possibly have happened? How could that?" And it's often a synchronicity
Yeah.
or something so beyond what we can imagine. But I think the key, for me, the key is when we know that we can create magic in somebody else's life or in our own life. I mean, if there's somebody living near to you and they're really struggling and got no money, you leaving a box of a few tins on their doorstep, that would be magic for them when they open that door. So there's the magic, but just the fact we make babies. I mean, how can you or I sit there and just produce this other little human? So every every day we see magic. It's just being aware of that. Look at a newborn baby's little eyelashes. That's magic, isn't it?
Yeah, it is magic. And also, the fact that we're here. Yeah. And other people aren't.
Mm,
And
mm,
of the people that are on this planet
mm.
I don't know if you believe we've been chosen or what the process is to get here, but we are here. We are on this rock
Yeah, yeah.
spinning through the galaxy. And what's that all about? Why are we here?
It is, that is the big question. Why are we here? And I just think people who have a purpose to their lives are happier. I think
Yeah.
there's a big clue. And funny enough, talking to a lady earlier, and she said her father retired. And once he retired, I went, did his spirits drop? She said, yeah, he really went downhill. And I went, I think men, when they often pack up their jobs, they lose their purpose. And we all need some purpose, something. Even if it's just you help out at the charity shop a couple of times a week, whatever it is, having some purpose that creates something better, create something in the world. And it can be a small thing, helping out a neighbour, that little thing. I think that's the miracle, that's the magic, and that's the purpose.
Yeah. And where do you stand on human design, astrology, things like that? Because human design is very much about following your life's purpose, and knowing the signs if you're not on course, etc.
Yeah, do you know, because several people have mentioned human design to me, and I've not looked into it, so I will have to have a little look, because it's a couple of smart people, because there's loads of woo-woo out there. And people are going, oh, you want to look at the rainbow unicorn better? And I go, yeah, no, you're all right. The human design sounds a bit more sensible, so I will look at it at some point. Yeah, astrology was just one of them things that give me a person, say female, age, that's their sign. I'll tell you what they're like. So I think there is something. Listen, we had several glitches this morning. Mercury's in retrograde. It's hard not to believe in, you know, astrology. Yeah, the amount of things that have glitched in the last week around me. And I used to be in some offices years ago, and these guys used to laugh when I used to say that. They go, oh, I've got to punch it. Yeah, Mercury's in retrograde. And then one day one of them come up, went, is that planet doing that thing? Because everything's going wrong. I went, yeah, it's in retrograde. So it's hard not to, unless I'm so accurate. I mean, Susan Miller, for your astrology for the month, how can she be? She actually put something recently about signing paperwork to do with something very, very specific, just as I was signing the paperwork to do with that very specific. I mean, her accuracy is astonishing. So yeah, I think how it works, it doesn't make sense in a way. How can the planet? But it does seem to make a lot. Maybe there is a synchronicity to the universe that we can tap into.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I suppose, we're all energy, we're all energetic beings.
Mm.
And, here we are, and we're on this tiny planet.
Yeah.
On this galaxy, in the midst of how many billions of other galaxies, and how our little wheel of galaxy affects us.
It makes you realize how you are just a dot in the universe. Your planet's a dot in the universe, let alone us as individuals. It's nicely humbling. It's nice to be humbled by that. But even as a kid, I'd look out at the sky and go, well, it's got to end somewhere, but then how can it end? There's got to be something beyond that, because our brains cannot understand the concept. But I often do a little visualization and meditation to be out in the galaxy looking round, and it's kind of terrifying and exciting all at once.
And how does it look?
As much as we see the pictures, I've got a few flat earthers around me, so they won't be happy with me saying that. But much as we see it, it is beautiful and magical.
Yeah.
And very dark in places. So very, very dark, but so still, so timeless.
Yeah.
But looking out over galaxies, they are so astonishingly beautiful.
But you don't get a sense of the shape of the universe.
Maybe I should go further out for that.
Yeah, because I wonder if the whole thing is maybe a big circle,
but there's got to be something beyond the circle. See, our brains can't go beyond that. So what's beyond the circle? Is the circle the end? How can there be an end to the universe or the end to space? We cannot. Our brains dimensionally cannot think. So I think our brains are starting to develop in that way, because you go back 20 years, there weren't so many movies about slipping around in time now. There's so many films and
Yeah, that's
TV
true.
shows that are about, it's like our brains, and you got the pop science popping up explaining these things. So I think our brains are starting to understand more. And I think over the next 50 years, we will start to understand space a lot more.
But do you think it's the case that we used to be able to understand this stuff and we've forgotten, or it's an evolution?
I think we saw our world as being the universe. If you go back a long way, we just saw our world as the universe. We saw the sky as like almost like the ceiling. I don't think we went beyond that much. And then we started to understand the sun went over, but it was almost like, I think our past self just saw it as like being in a room.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean. I don't think we understood the vastness of it.
But what about communication? Because my sense is that our prehistoric selves would have communicated telepathically and very, very much using different parts of the
Oh
brain
yeah.
that we use.
Yeah. It's that instinct. I think you bung people out. Well, the military guys I work with, they said they get bunged in the jungle and it's always at least 2 weeks. And people say it's harsh because they're bunged there with nothing. And they said, but it takes 2 weeks for what they call jungle consciousness to kick in. And after that 2 weeks, and they said the jungle's very noisy. They said, but after 2 weeks, it's not. It's all just white noise. But it's that one noise. It could be a twig cracking, and you just know it. Be careful, that's danger. Your brain start to filter out all that noise. So our awareness years ago, we would have been more telepathic because our sense of danger was certainly heightened. You put people out in the wild, they know when danger's coming their way. So definitely, I mean, the Aboriginal people, they find it odd that we use phones when we could just kind of send each other a message. They think we're a bit odd.
Yeah. And also animals, they know, like, if their owner has left work, they can energetically feel.
You've been reading Rupert Sheldrake, amazing stuff. I did a little study with him, funny enough, around Paul McKenna's house, and he did a telepathy, and it was brilliant. I mean, the results were so good. It was quite funny study, but yeah, animals know when their owners are coming home. They absolutely do.
Yeah. And I mean, the whole study of animals is so interesting because if we look at an animal, it's the most purest of spirits.
Mm.
It doesn't have lots of anxiety. Well, generally, some
Yeah,
do,
yeah,
but
yeah,
they tend to live in the now,
yeah.
in the moment,
Mm.
and they're happy. They do what they do. They're living. They're eating.
They
That.
don't also stop themselves. It's like my other half's got a cat. I won't call her my cat 'cause she drives me nuts. She's the most demanding creature on earth, and she don't care if I've had a bad day, or I've just walked in, or I need a wee, or I need to put the kettle on. She wants something, she'll whinge at me till she gets it. So they're not tarnished like us. But I love to study with cats because they ask because cats run away when they're due to go to the vet. So they don't logically know. You haven't gone, oh, you're going to the vet, and they understand what you're saying. But they run away. They run away. It's amazing. So I think it was Rupert Sheldrake did a study, took 100 vets and said, do you have a problem with appointments for cats? Because the owners, and they said 97% said they're the problem. The 3% that didn't said, we don't make an appointment when it's a cat. We just say, when you find your cat, show up. Just show up with it. And they run off.
Wow.
It's amazing. Yeah, brilliant study. The vets just go, yeah, vets know it. No, the cat's not going to disappear.
Yeah. Yeah. But they're also so sensitive to our emotions.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
But they know, they know if you're feeling. I mean, I used to have this cat called Itchy, and she was like a little shadow with me. She used to go everywhere with me. And if I was upset, she would come, she'd come and she would comfort me, she'd put her head under my chin. And she would always know if something had happened.
They really do. They really, really do. They pick up on your emotions. I mean, yeah, they're super sensitive animals, and we still have that. I think we still have those instincts within us. You must have, if you've ever had difficult times, and most people have had times when we're distraught or everything's going wrong, our senses do start to get heightened. We start to know things. Our dreams start to guide us. So I think we don't use that primitive part of ourselves in our everyday life because we
Yeah.
don't need to. But when the chips are down and we're having a tough time, that's when it kicks in.
Yeah, and I've also found, talking to a lot of people who are, in this world, they tend to find it when they are at their lowest,
Yeah,
and they're
yeah,
trying to find answers and they're trying to find a better way.
yeah.
So they fall on whatever modality it is that
Mm,
suits them,
yeah.
and then ultimately helps them. So a lot of healers have come from a dark place, have come
Oh,
from
yeah,
a difficult time,
yeah.
and they want to basically pass on the knowledge they've learned that's helped them to help other people. And I think that's what we all have in common, in this community, that we want to help people. Um,
I prefer to see somebody that's had life experience. And my spiritual teacher, Greta, who was a magical person, incredible person, and she'd had a really, really hard life. She'd had tough stuff happen, and so she had that awareness. It's like with hypnotherapists, we work with addictions. Myself and Bunmi, we work with addictions. Uh, and we've both got an addictive nature. We get it. I would never go to somebody who's never had an eating disorder for an eating disorder. I want to go to somebody that's experienced. I had a lady come to me and she was absolutely wiped out because her husband suddenly died and they'd been childhood sweethearts. They planned their retirement together and he suddenly dropped it. That's the finality, gone. And I just said, I was at a funeral yesterday. I'm always at funerals. I'm always at funerals because I know a lot of people, but I hadn't experienced what she'd experienced. And so I sent her to somebody else and I said, I think you see that person because they're particularly brilliant with bereavement and they've had that closer loss that you've had.
mm,
And that was a better fit for her. So I like therapists that have kind of therapists that have suffered, but you know what I mean, that have experienced it. Somebody that stopped smoking, for me to stop smoking, I wanted to see somebody had been through that for weight loss. I want to see somebody that's really managed their eating and got into great shape, not somebody that's never had that. So I really like therapists that have experienced life, and that's most it's when you go through that dark phase, you search. Your brain goes into search mode for answers, which often lead you down a spiritual path.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So when you were young and you were aware of, your nan and the tea leaves and intuition being a thing, did that then progress as you found out more and more about it? Did that progress to actually having a connection with spirit, like a tangible way that spirit communicated with you?
It's funny because I'm not madly spiritual. If not, in fact, I think I've become less spiritual over the years. That's mainly because I felt spirituality really jumped to shark when they started talking about. I'm talking to unicorns. I kind of bowed out a bit and thought, yeah, there was the commercial side of it kept coming up with new woo woo stuff. So I found it all getting a bit too woo woo for me. To me, I feel our connections are more scientific. All the information's out there floating on the ether. How on earth can telepathy work? There's over 2,000 studies conclusively proven that you. How many times? I mean, I've talked to skeptics and they've said, "I don't believe all that." I go, "Have you ever had that thing where you suddenly started thinking about an uncle or a friend, then you got the call to hear they've had an accident?" They go, "Yeah." So there is this information's out there that we can tap into, like the remote viewers. Look at the remote viewers. I
Yeah,
mean, they're trained, and their accuracy is so astonishingly high. The
yeah,
detail they can go into. So again, Rupert Sheldrake said, "Our brain is inside our skull, but our mind can travel." So I think a lot of it is there are ways that you can tap into the ether. They're now saying the universe is actually uh, contains memories, the memories of everything, which is very like Akashic records. So,
yeah,
so I'm not so much spirit guides. I think that can be a little bit like what your belief system is. It's like when people go when they have a near-death experience. If they're Christian, they might see Jesus. If they're Buddhist, they might see Buddha. They might see their nan if they were expecting their nan. I think a lot of that is the spirit guides is a lot to do with our belief system. It's all energy, and that energy will take a form that makes sense to us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why you attract professionals and
Mm,
the military, and those kind of people,
mm,
because that's the energy you're putting out there. You're saying, I'm not woo-woo, I'm not, don't be scared,
mm.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm logical. That's the energy that you're putting out. Uh,
Yeah, and I think it's important not to bluff it as well. I think it's important not to bluff it. I met Richard Bandler once said to me, "You're not spooky enough." And I went, "No, I'm not. I'm not." He said, "I like my psychics to be spooky." And I'm not spooky. I'm quite, and it'd be really wrong if I tried to do that. I think when I trained in hypnotherapy, I was trying to be the nicey hypnotherapist, the nicey, they all used to wear the little scarf that flicked up. Do you remember all the healers used to trot? They never walked, they trot. They wear the little scarf that flicked up, usually in blue and yellow. And I just thought, no, one day I just thought, I'm really struggling with this. I'm getting clients in, it's all going well, but I feel uncomfortable. But my real self, quite light-hearted, likes the business side, likes the sensible side, likes the science, but
yeah,
also likes to be a bit light-hearted. And I'm trying to be the sensible. How do you feel this week, therapist? It won't right. It didn't feel
yeah,
authentic. So I
right.
think we've got to work within what we are.
Yeah, but what's interesting to me is that you also read tarot cards, and that's
Mm,
been a big part of your life.
yeah,
How does that fit in?
it's a weird one, but it was I'm going back again, decades and decades and decades. 'Cause I'm knocking on now. So it was many years ago, and somebody dragged me along to a psychic fair, and I had my cards read. And this guy, I looked fine, but I was having a really tough time. You couldn't tell to look at me. And he pinpointed everything. He said, "Oh, it looks tough." I went, "No, I'm fine." He went, "Not according to the cards." I couldn't get anything past this guy. It was amazing. And he said quite a few things that made total sense. He also said a couple of things I thought, well, that ain't going to happen. But I was curious. So I went to another reader, and he was way out the area because he was at a fair. I went to somebody else. They didn't know me. I didn't know them. And they almost said word for word what he said, which blew
Wow.
me away, including a couple of things that I thought, well, that can never happen. And so I thought to test it out, went to a third, and she said identical things. And what it was, one of the things that I thought that can never happen, it was you're going to move out to the countryside. You're going to move to this little village and be surrounded by all these people. And they were describing the people. I thought, well, they don't sound like my kind of people. They drive me mad. And I'm not actually that much. I can't live in countryside. I want to be around, you know. I like that I can hear the M4 from here. I want to be around. I'm a city girl, so
Yeah.
although I live, Taplow and Bray, I've got all the major roads and airports up the road. So this was a village in the middle of nowhere, and I thought, yeah, weekend but no, not to live. But what happened was my then husband had the opportunity, and this was not any consideration at the time at all. He had the opportunity to move right out into the countryside to do his work. And all the men thought they'd put their little wives and children in this village, then they can go off drinking beer and doing what they do, working. And we'd all be, and I went, I'm not moving. And I was put under a lot of pressure to move, a
Hmm.
lot of pressure. And I went, I'm not moving. I'm not going. I don't want to live there.
Yeah.
I've got everything I want here. The kids are in great schools. I've got loads of friends here. My work's here. There's no reason for me to move. And the little wives and mamas would have driven me nuts. I don't want to join the mum and baby group. I don't want to join it. Don't interest me. So what interested me with that was all three of them said you're going to move out to countryside. I didn't. So it showed me that though somebody could tell you something in a reading, you got free will and you don't have to go along with it. But it also taught me, God, it's bloody accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just constantly blown away. So I just see them as a tool to intuition. I know intuition works. And to me, I pull out a card. Now, I could pull out a card for you and say one thing. I could pull out the same card for somebody else, say something different. The cards trigger my intuition.
Yeah.
And I think because they're visual, they trigger something that gives you a whole bunch of information. So I see it as a tool.
So how do you reconcile the fact that, so I've studied tarot as well,
Mm. Yeah,
and I've learned that the cards are never wrong. It's the interpretation that is wrong.
yeah, yeah,
So how do you reconcile the fact that the card, I mean, how does that work? That the fact that you pull three cards and
yeah.
the cards that you're meant to see that are going to give you the indication of whatever the question is, or
What, how do you get the right cards, do you mean? Or
I mean,
how?
how is it they're never wrong? That's the question.
I've, it's a weird thing because I've read cards for 45 years now, so it's such a natural part of me. It's like saying put toast in the toaster and it comes out brown. Now, does that work? You just go, well, it just does.
Yeah.
To me, it's such a natural thing. Um, I'm just not used to. Yeah, they just the synchronicity. I suppose you get better at it
Yeah, but
over
it like
time.
is it woo woo? Is it unexplained, or can your logical
Well,
brain
I think
access it?
intuition. Yeah, I think even the biggest skeptics, I can usually find out they're intuitive or not. I'm not that I go out my way. If somebody says that's a load of old whatsoever, I never argue with them. I go, yeah, you could be right. I never try
Yeah,
and prove anything. But if it's a genuine question and somebody's asking, and they'll say, oh, I'm not intuitive, I usually find there have been, you must have had a bad vibe about somebody at some point that seemed perfectly pleasant. You must, and they go, oh, yeah, there was that. And I go, there.
yeah,
And what I actually do is I take that away from them. It's an interesting way to work. I say, but that might not have been intuition. It seems intuitive. So sometimes it is pure intuition, and sometimes your brain's process something. So it could be, I'll give you one. Somebody close to me had a business partner, and they said, "We're like brothers. We get on so well. We do." And when he spoke, I just saw his mouth give this little twitch, and it was the slightest sneer. You wouldn't normally notice. And I thought, he's stitching you up, and he was. He
yeah,
doesn't like you. He's not your friend. And the guy was all friendly and nice, but that's like so you might pick up as so. I actually take it away from him because that makes people. I'm not trying to convince them of anything, and it could be they've noticed something unconsciously. I go, then there's the other stuff that I come up with. I'm working. I'll give you one example. A guy I read for about once a week, big businessman in America. And yeah, I can call him up and go, there's 3 deals on the table. Go, yeah, this is the one I really need. And I'll go, there's 4 people. Look at the guy. The guy wears heavy glasses and he's quite thick set guy, he's stocky. He's the one that will pull the deal for you. And he'll go, that's exactly one of the people that you can't pick that up from, because that is, I don't know what the deal is, who the people are. That is something coming into my head from somewhere.
yeah,
So I pull out card, then I see this guy and go, the others I'm seeing them pull back. I'm seeing this guy leaning forward, listening. He's the one that will make the deal happen. He's the one to focus on. So it's stuff like that. So in a way, I take it away from people because I need them to know, yeah, it might be intuition, it might not be. So it's when you break down how it works, the cards actually give you something visual that triggers something and helps you to access better information. So to me, often the cards will say what I've got in my head. So the information is coming from 2 places.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I always think it's much more useful when you go to see a tarot reader and you know they're an intuitive as well. They're
I
not
think they all
necessarily.
are, though. I think all tarot readers are, even if they don't know it.
Mm,
I
yeah,
think they all are. You keep reading, that just starts to open up.
yeah. What would you give advice for somebody that really wants to start honing their intuition? What's like a really strong thing that people can try?
I tell you advice I was given very early on. A friend dragged me off to this one night a week. This woman was doing this psychic development, and all this was really classed as woo-woo years ago. So we all went once a week, tried out different things. She got us dousing, doing this, that, and the other. It was really good fun. And at the end of the 5 weeks, I went, I love the cards. My friend went, oh, I love the hypnotherapy. We all went in different directions. But
Mm,
and I remember Betty Shine, I think it was, said she spent 2 years trying out different things, automatic writing. She tried, at the end of that 2 years, she knew what she wanted. So I'd say go out and try loads. Don't go spending loads of money. There's loads of free stuff. I mean, my mum used a pendulum. It was needle and cotton. You know, you don't have to spend loads of money, but try out lots of different things. Now you've got the internet. We didn't have that. We're dinosaur times. We didn't have internet. There's so many things you can try out and see there'll be something that really, and then put all your energy into it, because I think the big mistake people make is they're all off playing with different things. Great if it's a hobby. If you want to work in that field, find your thing and work it and become the number one in that field. Be brilliant. That's one of the things I do with the Future Vision coaching. We really hone people and find what they're brilliant at. So if you want to do it as a job, I would really try lots of different things. When you find your thing, really develop it. Don't keep going off to play with other stuff. Really develop it if you want it to be your job.
Amazing. So let's get back on to your magic moments. I think we've only really done one. I've got kind of off-piste a bit.
What other ones have I got? I wrote some down. I'm trying to remember now.
What the other two were. So we've done one, which was how FLP came into.
Yeah.
What's your second one?
I can't remember now. What did we say? Let me have a look.
Written on a Post-it note upstairs in the attic, Anne. So
yeah, magic man. The problem I've got is I've had so many. Yeah. I've had so many. Okay, one that comes to mind, and again, it was back around the military guys, and they were working in security at this point, and thousands of people walking through this building, probably hundreds, I'm probably exaggerating, probably hundreds. And one of them, his card never worked. He'd try and swipe in, and they'd give him a new card. In the end, they'd go, building don't want you, mate. You know, and then one of them said, I think you're meant to speak to us. I think you're being stopped to speak to us. You're spiritual. And the guy said, I've just started to get interested in this. So he said, you need to go see Annie. She's up the road. And so the guy come and saw me, and I took him into a past life, and we had this amazing experience. And he said, I keep seeing this white eagle. And we went through the whole process. I said, I know what that is. I'll tell you afterwards. So afterwards I said, I only know one Native American. His name's White Eagle. And I haven't seen him for years and years and years. He was actually dating a friend of mine of all things. So I said, I haven't seen him or her for a lot of years. Let me track him down. So I looked. And I contacted I said, I've got a feeling they wouldn't stay together. So I contacted her. She said, oh, no, we're not together. She told me he was down near the coast and he was holding these sweat lodges. So I said to the guy, I think you should go to one of his sweat lodges. There he is. And I gave him the number. He said, why does that number look familiar? So he dialed it. While he was sitting with me, he dialed it. And the woman answered. Now I didn't know the guy had come all the way up from the coast. He was in a little village down near the coast, and the number was one of his neighbours. And the sweat lodges were in his local woods. He'd never heard about it. They didn't advertise it publicly. So it was a 5-minute walk from where he lives is White Eagle. So, and it was always that thing like that when that you get, to me, the magic moments are this synchronicity when you just go, I actually didn't tell that story for a long time. I thought nobody's going to believe that.
Yeah.
You know, you get this synchronicity where you go, oh, wow, that's another level. That's another level. So, yeah, that was I've had so many magical moments. I think one of the biggest magical moments for me is working with the future life regression. And when I started to anchor my future self and really tap into the energy, my life changed dramatically within 3 months, like dramatically. You couldn't fast track your life anymore. I mean, I had my little office in Slough, and I was nervous about clients coming there because it was a bad area. It's just like, I'd be thinking, oh no, nobody's messing with their cars outside. It was a rough old area. And I went from that to the offices in Bray, major book deal, worldwide deals, all within 3 months. And it was once I started tapping into that future, and that's what I want to do with people. I want to take somebody and go, there's so much more to you, but let's not do it slowly. Let's fast track you. What is that future you like? What they're doing? How can we create that now? let's fast track it and bring the energy of the future back into present consciousness. And that's to me is magic. That is that incredible moment when I started to realize you can just bring that energy for the future. So you don't need to have 5 years working in that shitty, horrible job where they're not teaching you. What is your future self who's actually made all the right moves, that's brilliant, that believes in her or himself? What are they doing? You go, oh yeah, they found a better job. Oh, they studied that, or there's something. But you immediately go to that, anchor it, bring it back. And it's weird because things just started to happen for me. And I don't like to say that because I find the whole manifesting thing, oh, I'll sit here and be lazy and write something a bit of paper and they'll send me £1,000,000. It's going to drop in my lap. I'm not a fan of that because I think we have to take some action. But I have to say, doors just open for me.
Yeah, but you are taking action because, and I think it's really important, especially in today's culture,
Yeah.
that you can say, this process can be very, very fast. It can totally
Yeah.
fast track, but
Yeah.
you're putting the energy in and you're basically recognizing something that is already within you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're saying, I'm ready for that now. I
Yeah.
recognize it and I acknowledge it,
Yeah.
and that's what I want. And by
Yeah.
putting the energy into it, that manifests it, in whatever the universe's time is,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever it is that you're trying to manifest, because it's it's kind of out of our control to some extent.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. But once you have that total faith and you know your future, it's more liable to happen when you're jumping through different decisions every day.
Yeah, yeah. And I think going back to the magic moments, I think your final one was something to do with your grandmother. Was it something to do with the tea leaves and her, or am I remembering that wrong?
But I feel like we covered that one. So I
We
think we
covered
had my
that one.
grandmother,
Yeah.
and that awareness that it actually works. Then I had the soldiers, and I'm just trying to think. I mean, it's just every day. It's so difficult because every day I have something amazing happen where somebody will contact me and go, I can't believe you actually said that and it's now happening, or I've taken them. I think one of the magical things for me is 3 times I've seen my future home and ended up with that home. One of them didn't exist.
Mm.
One of them did not exist, and it was a very unusual place. So you couldn't conjure that up, that was something where you go, well, how on earth am I going to end up with a place like that? It doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
And then you end up there. So I think the magical moments, I have so many of them. I think some of the magic is seeing people who heal themselves.
Mm.
I think of one lady I know, and bone marrow cancer.
Mhm.
And the doctor, she just refused to believe it. So she shouldn't have been around after 2 years, and 12 years later, she's just getting on with everything. Oh, stop wasting my time, doctors. You're getting on my nerves. She actually, when they say you need to urgently come in, she'll say, oh, doom and gloom again. What's the matter with? And she just refuses. And 12 years later, she's still pottering about and seems fine. And you just think she refused to acknowledge that. And there's so much to do with our belief systems, and what we create, and including our health.
Yeah. And it's the negativity, because if your mind goes to negativity, that's what gets then brought into fruition.
Absolutely. What you focus on starts to happen. That's why I'm not a fan of wearing the little pink bow. I know it's very worthy and you go and do your however kilometers and raise money for breast cancer, but I wouldn't put a symbol of breast cancer on my breast and walk around with it. I just wouldn't do that. I think it's great people raise money, and it's wonderful, but I personally wouldn't use a symbol of cancer. I wouldn't wear a symbol of cancer. I'll focus on health and raising the money, send it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe, again, going back to, like our brains and how powerful they are, and we don't even really understand half the things they do. This idea of, the thoughts that we have are everything, they create our reality.
Absolutely.
And so we wake up and we have free will to think, I'm going to have a great day, or I'm just going to mope about and feel sorry for myself.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The people that I know that are brilliant at manifesting are also the most positive people. And they things go wrong and they go, oh, that weren't meant to happen. They just go off and focus on something else. They are so positive and they have amazing things happen.
Yeah, no, and I really, really believe that. I think there it is, and you see it with people. I love the example of Ed Sheeran, although there's loads of people like this. And
Mm.
he just had this, he had someone in mind that he wanted to be like. I forget who
Oh, yeah, yeah,
new musician was. And he said, I want to be as big as that by the time I'm, 18. And then by
mm,
the time I'm 21, the thing I want is to sell out the Hammersmith Apollo. And then the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And he
mm,
set himself this target,
yeah,
and he met them. And he had such ambition to, the fact that he picked up a guitar in the first place. I think he was watching Brian May standing in
yeah,
Buckingham Palace during the Jubilee. Can't remember which one it was,
mm,
2002, I think. Um, and how what an inspiration. And then and he wanted that, and then he went on to do it. But he
yeah,
put
yeah,
energy in, and he had the mindset, and he
yeah.
didn't know how to play the guitar, but he found a way to get from A to B. He didn't look like a pop star, but
No,
that doesn't matter.
yeah.
Um, but it's all about how you put in that positivity, that I can do that. There's nothing going to stop me.
It's definitely a way of thinking. It's like Steve Jobs, who I think was one of the most remarkable people ever. And who says things like, I'm, go- I'm going to make a dent in the universe? Who says stuff like that? That shows his thinking. That shows a bigness of thinking. And he went to war with Bill Gates. He said Bill Gates had taken some of his stuff or something. And he said, I'm going to go up against him, even if I lose every last penny of my billions. And he said, I'm going to go thermonuclear on this. Who uses words like thermonuclear when they've got a disagreement with somebody? That level of thinking, that vastness of thinking, that I just think, wow, we'd normally go, well, I'll go after him. I'll take him to court. I'm going to go thermonuclear. I just found his whole way of thinking so remarkable. And that's
Mm,
why he created such incredible things.
yeah. So why do you think it is that people in the military have been so instrumental in the FLP journey? What is it about those people that has been such a good fit, do you think?
You talk to military people and police as well and say, is there any time you ever just knew something? And I've never had one say no. They'll go, I woke up, I knew something was going on around that corner.
Yeah.
I walked down that street and there was something not right. Their instincts are really heightened. Their sense of dangers because they're in lines of work when their instincts are heightened. But the military actually do a lot of research. I mean, I put in my last book, the book that's about the future of business, how the American Navy, and they got a wonderful technical name for this. They noticed some of their military people um, would know, they'd get out of the way just as a shot was fired. They go, you moved a few seconds before that was fired. They started to realise that some people had this instinct, no, we're not going that way. And so they started to study it because they thought if they can study it, they can teach it to all their people. They call it spidey sense.
Mm.
Spidey sense. How
Yeah.
technical can you get? But they've put a lot of money, American military put a lot of money in, as I say, with the remote viewing, but governments will study this because they know there's something to it. And
Yeah.
so I find that, but the thing is, they're amazing to work with. A lot of spiritual people are just away with the fairies. They forget what time it is. They're off. You're talking to them and they're off playing with something else. They're like, oh, I think I'll go and play with crystals now. And that, you military people that are spiritual and business people that are spiritual. We go at 2 o'clock, we're going to work on that. They'll go, 1,400 hours, we'll be there. And they're there.
Yeah.
And they actually do. They're not, oh, I thought I'd take this off a course now. And da, da, da. They stick to it. So I find spiritual people can be a bit difficult to work with. They just always they'll believe anything they're told, whereas they're quite measured. So working with military and business people, you have to back up what you're saying,
Yeah.
and you've got to get it really right. That they challenge me, so that, but in a good way. They're not just, don't believe all that. They're logical. So it's quite interesting for me to work with people that are measured, but their ability to focus. People's attention's really bad these days. As I say, it's scattered. They really focus. They really you've really got. I went and trained in remote view with the military lad, and it was their level of concentration. It's like they weren't blinking. They were focusing so much, and to be around people like that is wonderful. Or you go to some group and they're off waving their arms about cleaning somebody's aura, and it's just like, no, I like being around people that have that level of intuition and focus and common sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that really interesting. I want to just quickly touch on, I want to go back to like sacred geometry and patterns and things like that,
Yeah.
because I know that you've written about energy.
Mm.
And one of your Instagram videos had me in a whole flat spin, which was you had a pyramid, and then inside the pyramid you could charge things.
Oh
And
yeah.
and it set me down a whole rabbit hole of, wow, I need to find out all about this. And of course, there's the Great Pyramids of Giza, etc., and Stonehenge, and all of this earth energy. And I'd be really just interested to hear, um, like, when did you get interested in that kind of energy? How did that start for you?
Well, funny enough, pyramids are incredible. I mean, pyramids, you've got just the metal, it doesn't even have sides. The energy inside that is different from outside. Flies, insects won't go in. You put food inside, just the actual outline, it doesn't even have sides. It won't go off.
Mm.
Food outside will go off. How can the energy? I mean, scientists have just said, what is this madness, this voodoo that goes on inside? Their instruments go haywire. So pyramids are phenomenally interesting. I just they've got so many uses. I got into pyramids years ago. Um, and my friend Amethyst Gray's written a couple of books about pyramids. Different uses for them. It was actually a guy that did magic. He was a proper sorcerer wizard.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of key. I don't get involved, but I have clients that go, look, I need protection. I'm under attack or I'm having a bad time. And I'd get him to do it. I'm only interested in, because it's so easy with magic to slip into grey areas. I'm
Yeah.
not interested. But if somebody really felt they needed protection, I'd send them to him, and he'd do something, give them a pouch, and we had incredible results, way beyond anything you could explain. So, and he had a pyramid that he'd developed, and it did have sides, and it was only some cardboard thing. And I had that for about 25 years. In the end, it fell apart. But
Yeah.
I would put things in it and put little pictures in it. And yeah, I'd charge up crystals in it. And I absolutely loved it. So it took me to reading about pyramids. And the more I learned, the more I was going, how can the inside of that pyramid send instruments crazy? What is going on there? So it's just, I just find them absolutely incredible, but it's worth having one. There's a guy on the tube goes around on the Northern Line, funny enough, and he wears a pyramid on his head. Yeah, it's quite well known and people find him funny. But he says it keeps out all the negative energy. And I thought, oh, fair enough. I probably wouldn't go that far, but
Yeah. Because it's interesting. I went on a tour around the City of London looking at all the ley lines,
oh
and
yeah,
where St Paul's is like where they all basically come in, all these spokes of ley lines,
wow,
and just in front of the Bank of England. So the Bank of England is also on a ley line,
right,
but there's this triangle right in front of the Bank of England. I forget what other anchor points there are.
mm,
And then smack dab in the middle is the statue of Wellington, I think it is.
right,
And so it's interesting to me that there is this triangle right
mm.
Bank of England, and an energetic triangle. So maybe doesn't even need sides. It just
Doesn't even need sides. It is. I
yeah,
mean, There's actually a patent for razors because it does sharpen razors. How on earth can razors sharpen
Mm.
inside a pyramid? But they've absolutely conclusively proved they sharpen inside a pyramid. That's why a patent was issued.
Wow.
It's
And do you think
just,
the pharaohs, do you think they were buried inside pyramids so the bodies would decompose slower? Because if food doesn't go off in a pyramid, then a body wouldn't decompose as.
but they've put animals inside and they kind of almost dehydrate as opposed to
Mm.
decompose. They kind of dry, so the body's still there in some form. So I think they were thinking, maybe they'll come back in some way.
Yeah, and of course, the Mayans had pyramids. They think that is it Silbury Hill? There's a hill in England that they actually found used to be covered in wood. So it
Mm.
also was like a bit like a Mayan type
Wow.
pyramid. And it's just interesting that, I mean, those are how many sides? Four sides, some of those, or maybe even more.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's been a huge amount of studies, just
Mm.
brain activity inside pyramids. People who do a meditation somewhere else than go inside a pyramid, the brain activity is completely different. They go into a Zen-like state very quickly. It's just amazing stuff.
Yeah, it's really
It's
interesting, isn't it?
great.
It's
Yeah,
definitely
it's
something.
worth digging into. Yeah, it's worth digging into.
Future life progress that one. So I want to wrap up by talking about your three wishes for either yourself or mankind, or what you would wish for people to make their lives better, to live their authentic selves, to be happy. What would they
Well,
be?
yeah, my biggest wish for my family to be really have a comfortable, easier life because we all work so hard these days. And my family all works hard, so I'd love just for my grandchildren to have a blessed life. That's my biggest wish. Listen, this is a bit like a beauty pageant, isn't it? Oh, I wish for world peace, but I do.
Yeah,
My biggest fear is the war, and I think people need to be careful who they vote for because I think some people, and I don't get into politics with my work, but there are some people that are known for not going towards war and some that are, and I think that'd be my biggest fear, a war. So for me, not having war, really, in this day and age, we should be beyond bloody war, shouldn't we? We shouldn't be having wars. It's ludicrous in this day and age. So I would say that a peaceful world would be one. And what did I write down? Let's have a look. I tell you, I make notes and I've totally forgotten what I say. Oh, I can't read my writing. My granddaughter's teaching me to write better. Um,
yeah,
I suppose again, I avoid politics, but I just feel there's really good people out there that want to make the world a better place. And all they do is whinge on Facebook all day, which is
yeah,
boring and nobody cares. And I would like good people to go into the systems
yeah,
and just do their bit. Could you imagine if people that really did want the world to be a better place all infiltrated in a way the political system, local councils, charities even. Some of the charities are pretty corrupt. Just good people, instead of whinging on Facebook, just went and got involved. I've got respect for people. 3 people I know have gone into local politics, all completely different views. They'd never agree with each other,
yeah,
all completely different, but they're all good people
yeah,
who want to make a difference.
yeah,
And I admire them because they've actually got off their arse and gone and done something, and they will make a difference, even whether it's a big way or a small way. But imagine if all the good people out there just infiltrate and work their way up in certain systems, the world would be so much better.
yeah, absolutely agreed. Um, in your future life progressions that you've done,
Mm.
what is the thing that you're most excited about happening in the future that you've seen?
Well, it's getting beyond the point we're in and seeing that the human race actually grows up. We seem to have a sudden fast track where we're like silly kids now. We are. I'm like a silly kid. We're all like silly kids now. And I just see in the future we're not so needy. We're much more collective. We're much more aware of being part of a group rather than me, look at me, or I want this, I want that. They see the greater whole. So, and when I look at it further down the road, 100 years or more, the world is clean. It is calmer. So I'm very optimistic. And the things I've seen have happened. So when I look, I've got confidence in what I see in the future.
And how do you view things like global warming, having seen into the future? Is it something that we
No,
get
it's
less?
calm. The world's fine. I look. I there's cleaner energy. I think we could have clean energy now. We just could.
Yeah,
It's just obvious that technology is there for clean energy. I think in the future we have ways of creating energy that's clean and safe and pure. So I think the environment cleans up.
yeah,
The environment will be clean. I think we also, and I've written about this, we develop certain things that clean the energy, clean the air, clean the seas, clean the water. So the world in 100, even 50 years' time, I think is when the big shift starts to come. 100 years' time,
that's,
we've created this. Obvious we can create clean energy. It's so obvious that we can. But when people are protesting against, I go, look, we can't do it today. Don't be silly. Stopping me getting up the road in my old banger is not helping. And I will drag you off the road because it makes me, I'm not very patient with things.
yeah,
But and it's like people are anti-fracking. I think we've got huge gas reserves under this country. We've got huge. We could take 10% of one gas field and that will give us cheap fuel for 50 years. We could sell another 10% to various countries in Europe that need it and invest that money into clean energy. It's a transition. Just kind of, we've got to stop everything today. It's ludicrous. But we could have that. We could invest 10% that we make in profit elsewhere. We'd have cheap energy. We'd live comfortably and we could develop. I just think investing in, but the world's clean in the future. I'm not at all worried about the environment for the future.
all right. I have just one more question.
Okay.
I've got loads of questions, but one more. What about the future of propulsion? How are we going to travel fast in the future? What does travel look like?
That's an interesting one. We definitely find, I mean, it's not that hard. We can do it now. So if you want to go to New York in an hour, all it means is the plane goes outside the Earth's atmosphere.
Yeah.
And then it's actually not that hard. I mean, the hyperloop, it's so obvious. To say to go from London to Manchester in the hyperloop, it's already there, the super duper travel. So we just got to kind of invest in the right things.
Yeah. But what about planet to planet or galaxy to galaxy?
That is definitely there. What was that TV series? Expanse, I think. Was it called The Expanse? Something like that. And it really showed you what I see, where it's not that hard to go from. We're not there yet. We're not there in the near future, but we will be able to travel planet to planet. We will colonize, definitely.
Yeah. And is that through wormholes or what's because the distances are so massive.
Yeah.
Is it because we're all like corkscrewed up and so traveling between the galaxies is actually not that much of a distance?
I was shown time as being, imagine a piece of licorice and you've got a piece of that, and this is the distance.
Yeah.
Imagine if you just bent it over.
Yeah.
The research now is looking at bending time as opposed to just traveling in a line, but we don't understand it there. But there are ways. I'm not seeing us using wormholes. I think if they do, they won't come out again. I think they'll vanish somewhere in a wormhole. But yeah, I see we find ways to sort of bend time, slip time.
Yeah.
It happens already. Just last week, there was some weird stuff happening when people are talking and it's like there was a fraction of a second went missing. One of them was on a video I made. I need to sit and watch it because every so often I notice this like jolt. And then I noticed several people online saying something's just weird's happened with time. We all already think time is not the same speed in all places.
Mm.
So that is weird, isn't it? If you're on the ground and I'm up in a spaceship,
Yeah.
or I'm at the top of a tall tower, your time will run slower than my time. How can that be possible? So I think once we start to understand time better, it'll be easier to use time.
Yeah. You also have a exercise which, if you want to extend or shorten time.
Yeah, that was so cool. That was so cool. I just had this time when I was stuck in traffic and I just didn't know how I'd get through my day. And I needed to get somebody to the hospital and go with them. And I had clients and it was just a horrendous day. And I'm stuck in traffic. So I'm not even going to be at the office when my client arrives, which is horrendous for me. And I just imagine the road, like a road in front of me as being that day with times on it, 10 a.m., 11 a.m. And I just got it and stretched it. I just stretched it, and I immediately felt I had all the time in the world. And the weird thing is, I was stuck in that traffic, but I got there in a short space of time, and everything worked, even though logically it couldn't. It did all work. The work I had time over that day.
Fantastic. Listen, Anne, I could talk to you probably talking about time for hours. It's been completely fascinating. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. No, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for your time today. And if anybody wants to learn more about what you do, your website, www.annejirsch.com,
Yep.
or they can find you on socials. Is it Anne Jirsch Instagram? Is it just that?
Yeah, just look up Anne Jirsch or futurevisiontraining.com. I'm about. You find me.
And you can also book to have sessions with Anne or a tarot reading or whatever. And do check out all her videos on her Instagram. They're all very, very interesting. And I love them so much. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. We'll
Okay.
talk again.
Okay, bye. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please do like, share, and get involved in the comments. See you for more magic next week. Bye.